Good morning and good afternoon to everybody. It's really nice to see you here on Monday. As Justin said, it just started. So, we can only get better from here. We hope so. So, welcome to the show today, Show Attributed. I'm running this today. It should have been Stefan, but he's on Easter break. That's what you do in Denmark. You have a lot of breaks. And I'm very happy to have Justin on the show today. Justin, founder and CMO of Impactable, I'm very happy to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here too. Big fan of you guys.
Thank you so much. So, Justin, I looked up into your journey, and it's kind of a little bit of fascinating journey when you're thinking of where you started and where you are right now. So, tell us a little bit about what sparked your interest for marketing in general and getting here where you are with this big LinkedIn ads agency.
Yeah, the short version of it is I used to work in restaurant industry. That's kind of where I got most of my experience, and I came to LinkedIn mostly looking for opportunities. I took a different approach than most, and this is 6, 7 years ago, so definitely kind of an aggressive approach where I looked up anyone who might have an opportunity for me in my city, recruiters, HR managers, district managers, and I was sending 15, 20, 30 connection requests a day, just intentionally growing my network of people that might have opportunity. And two things happened. I had tons of interview opportunities. It's still a great play in today's market to do that. But then I also became a visible restaurant operator in my city on LinkedIn. So it taught me the power of how easy it might be to dominate a small niche on LinkedIn in any given city, and the power of that, because that actually started attracting restaurant investors, not just people looking for salary positions. I took one of those investors up on the opportunity and became a part franchise owner of a Potbelly sandwich shop franchise, and then through that realized the power of LinkedIn. Created a little side hustle, nights and weekends, helping other people use LinkedIn. It turned into a lead gen agency. The lead gen agency was right time, right place. Was acquired a couple years later, majority acquisition, and then from there, I stayed on as minority owner and CEO to pivot into a LinkedIn ads agency. And now we're investor backed, have our own tech enabled software, and then kind of growing from there. So yeah, kind of a unique story.
It is very unique, and it's so applicable between industries as well of what you're doing. What is it that you see that across the industries, wherever you go, what can you apply in marketing that anybody can use?
One of the big things that seems to be true almost anywhere is that if you humanize your brand and build trust, usually good things will happen. So that worked for me as a restaurant operator. That worked for me to break into a restaurant owner, and it worked for me in the managed service business. But I've also seen it work for SaaS companies, IT consulting, other marketing agencies. So humanizing your brand, investing in personal branding works really well, and also anything you can do to show expertise and not just tell people you're the expert works wonders to build trust and build revenue.
And is that mostly for LinkedIn, or have you seen that happen on other platforms too?
I'm partial to LinkedIn, but I see it happening in other places. So, Quora and Reddit and Twitter, and YouTube, those are good examples. People that do well in B2B or even e-com side, they're building a personal brand, they're building trust, they're showing people, why they're the experts in this space, showing their experiments and building in public. And I think that's a good play to kind of find maybe one or two organic social places to play and double down on those and kind of make a name for yourself.
Nice, really nice. And when you talk with people, what is the common misconception about LinkedIn that they usually have before jumping in?
The biggest thing I hear is that LinkedIn ads is expensive, or
Uh-huh.
that if they haven't used LinkedIn, they just think, it's a place where people have their resume, and it's not a place where, much action is happening. Definitely not thinking of like content creation and consumption, but all of that's kind of relative. Whenever I hear someone say LinkedIn ads is expensive, my first question is, compared to what? Obviously, if you're talking about cost per click or cost per lead, but if the quality is 3 or 4 times what you might get as a Facebook lead, like, would you be willing to pay 2 or 3 times more for that? And of course you would. So it's all relative, but that's the biggest one I hear.
Can you talk a little bit about the industries as well? Because what we hear often is, oh, so easy for you. You sell to SaaS people and they're always on LinkedIn. But you came from restaurant businesses. So how do you debunk that type of misconception as well?
Yeah, I would say there's the most active industries, I think, are SaaS companies for sure. There's business consulting, coaches consultants. There's IT consulting, marketing agencies. But honestly, like, so when I got started, yeah, I was in the restaurant industry, and that actually was more active than I thought. There was recruiters and HR managers and restaurant owners and all of that. And then we sold into a variety of industries when I did the LinkedIn lead gen. And surprisingly, there's a lot of manufacturing companies. There's a lot of transportation, logistics, construction, legal services. There's a lot of different pockets that are active. I would say the worst ones that are really notoriously inactive, probably doctors and lawyers are some of the least active. So if you're trying to target them, yeah, maybe not the best platform, but a lot of other activity.
Fun. That's so interesting that you're seeing that, and then you can debunk that for other people when they're trying to break in, for sure. Let's talk about the buyer's journey. That goes on the other side then. So have you noticed any shifts happening like a couple of years ago, if you would take 3 years ago and right now, when the way the buyers are showing their interest on various
Yeah, I
platforms?
would say one of the biggest things is trust continues to be harder and harder to overcome, and trust continues to be one of the
Mhm.
biggest levers to, either uh, grow or scale faster as a brand, or maybe get passed by others. So the whole demand gen movement, dark funnel content, like the biggest thing I took away from that is, it's one thing just to hammer prospects with your ads and think that it's just timing and just logo recognition, but the biggest threshold to cross in order to get someone to kind of buy into your company and your solution is they need to trust that you are the experts, that you understand their pain points. And so the type of content that they're consuming, uh, I think, has shifted for B2B, where yeah, it was a lot more corporate logos, a lot more just repurposing blogs, but now people really do seem to understand more and more that yeah, if you can showcase your subject matter experts, founder led marketing, or subject matter expert led marketing, humanize your brand, and show people what you do, how you do it, what your process is. That attracts so much more trust and attention in the right way than almost any other kind of like marketing. So I would say the sales cycle does seem to be getting a little longer. There's more touch points. The digital marketing, there's yeah, it's definitely a more multi-channel approach, but also the type of content that seems to move the needle the most has shifted a bit in the last 3 or 4 years.
Right, right. Let's move a bit into the multi-channel approach. This is what all of your agency focuses on, and it's not just LinkedIn ads. But if we start with LinkedIn ads in that type of a B2B world, so what kind of hurdle do marketers and company owners face when they try to figure out, okay, LinkedIn expensive, what kind of derivatives they're trying to figure out and what
Yeah,
works?
the first thing I would say is the mindset that most companies are at when they try LinkedIn ads is this. Usually they start with SEO, which, okay, they understand that actually takes time and builds momentum. They get that. Now, almost all the other marketing channels they try before LinkedIn ads, other than SEO, are more transactional. So they after SEO, they lean
Mhm.
into paid search. That is people searching for exactly what you're doing. That's kind of more transactional, shorter sales cycle. They then usually try email marketing and Facebook, which they also usually try a more transactional play. And then they come to LinkedIn, which in my mind, LinkedIn is way more like SEO. It takes time to build momentum. It's a trust building kind of longer term. You're getting in front of people that are likely to have a need, but not showing as many in market intent signals. So it's more of a long game. And then they put it in a silo as far as they don't necessarily let it integrate with the other channels. And my biggest combination that I just like, if I can, put one thing out there that changes your mind is you're paying for SEO, you're paying for paid search traffic, people searching for exactly what you do, but then you don't do enough to take that traffic and nurture, build trust, and try to convert it on the back end over time. And LinkedIn is probably the perfect channel to do that because in addition to being able to just retarget your website traffic, you can layer on all of those qualifying filters on top of your warm website traffic to just stay in front of your good fit website traffic, which none of the other channels are able to do that as well. So it's kind of an ROI enhancer, not just a new channel in a silo that you need to figure out apart from everything else.
Nice, nice. And if you were to unpack it as kind of tell us your playbook, because you built all of your company around this multi-channel approach. So what is the playbook for making LinkedIn ads work, and what other channels would you play?
Yeah, so the biggest thing I would say to make LinkedIn ads work is make sure you have a good starting foundation, because I've never really seen LinkedIn ads be amazingly successful if that's where you're starting, or if you have a weak foundation. So the first thing I would say is, yes, invest in SEO early. I'm still a huge fan of paid search. It's hard to beat like in market high intent search traffic that paid search offers. But the one big thing, the downfall of that is A, you can't necessarily qualify the prospects before they click, and then B, it's highly competitive. They're clicking on your website and then 3 or 4 other competitors. And if you don't have a good game plan to retarget, qualify, and convert that traffic, then that's becoming increasingly harder to scale. And the other thing about paid search is there's only so much demand to be captured at any given point. That's a demand capture channel. So you really do have to balance that out with other channels that help create interest and awareness and demand. And so start with SEO, get your paid search. As you're seeing diminishing returns trying to scale paid search, it's a great time to introduce LinkedIn retargeting and then multi-channel retargeting to stay in front of that traffic. And then I would come back to LinkedIn cold, kind of building initial awareness, get a steady stream of high quality prospects that are going to have a longer sales cycle, but you kind of have to balance that. And so in my mind, I think of this like an ecosystem. I have high intent search traffic that has shorter sales cycle. I have high quality LinkedIn traffic that's going to be a longer sales cycle. And I need the right balance and mix of like top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, and retargeting in order to get, the most efficient versus, here's my 5 channels and they need to, live and die on their own. They should kind of ebb and flow in and out of each other. And it's more like an ecosystem or a gardening environment where you're tweaking, different things to see what combination and what mix gets you the most efficient results.
Right. And would you play an email into this as well?
Yeah, the way that I like to think about email would be a couple of things. I think just doing massive cold email by itself is probably getting a little more outdated. I would typically like to use email more as like triggers. So first, with digital marketing, drive awareness, drive website traffic. I would identify that website traffic and I would use email as maybe kind of the nurturing, or I would use email as a initial awareness, not to get direct message conversions, but to pique curiosity, get them to the website, which then lets me nurture them digitally. And so I would think of it like that. Like even email shouldn't be so transactional. It should either be leading to website visits that then lead to digital nurturing, or it should be digital ads that get them to your website, and then email triggers that kind of nudge and push them through the funnel or deliver additional assets.
Interesting. It's really funny that how it becomes an ecosystem of you figuring out who's ready, who's not ready, and sending them the right directions. Mastery, very cool. And for that mastery to work, a lot of marketers are struggling with attribution and in general measurement. And that's why we're saying, oh, LinkedIn ads are so expensive. Comparing to what? And where do you compare that? So tell me how you think about measurement in general and talk to me about attribution.
So the way I think about measurement, and this is something that's, I can tell you is frustrating, tons of organizations, tons of marketers, and it's not something that anyone has 100% figured out, but my kind of triangulate the truth method is I make sure that with all the marketing channels I set up, we fight for channel attribution. I would call that more channel influence, because each of the channels might take credit for, for a conversion if they all had a hand in it. So it's more the influence the channel show. I would definitely implement self-attribution, ask the prospects themselves. And then the third one is software attribution. And tools like Dream Data are amazing for showing that complex multi-channel journey. And you kind of need to take all 3 of those data points and triangulate the truth and use some layer of intuition, because even that isn't going to give you the perfect journey. But those 3 data points would be really good to be able to say, okay, I feel confident that these channels are influencing, quality deals, and it's really hard for me to see the impact of this. Maybe I'll lessen my my budget there, and maybe I'll move more investment here. But the software attribution is really hard to get away from or not to have in that mix, because the channel influence and the self attribution is only a fraction of it. When you're actually able to see, hey, they Googled me first, they got hit with a bunch of LinkedIn retargeting, then they came back and Googled directly through organic brand search and landed. HubSpot and almost all these other Google Analytics, it's going to just chalk it up to either paid search or organic search, and you're not going to have any idea. You're not going to believe that LinkedIn had influence in here, and then thus more and more people saying that's more expensive because they don't see the whole kind of integrated journey.
Yeah, and it kind of becomes, trust me, it works. I can see them seeing our ads, and something is happening. It is a bit more difficult to prove then. And it's not really about the proof either. Prove me it's working. It's really bringing in that quality demand, as you're saying. So if a channel is working, let's double down on that one. But just first, we need to see that it's actually helping us out to bring in.
Yeah, and the big thing I would say, like when you're looking at these marketing motions, is as even in your reporting, you should try to zoom out and look at the macro. So instead of saying, hey, I want to see, and I've seen this happen so many times, like the organization will say, okay, yes, we're going to run LinkedIn ads, but I'm only going to count anything that directly hits my website with LinkedIn UTM still attached to it. That's what we're going to, solely judge everything on to see if LinkedIn's successful or not. Mm-hmm. And I would say, there's some value in trying to like silo that and track it and prove it on its own. But the bigger picture would be, if your overall marketing investment is producing higher quality results or more efficient cost per demos or closed deals, like that's the biggest thing. And I've seen so many people like forget to zoom out, and they're like nitpicking these individual channels that they didn't zoom out and actually see that adding this channel, even though it doesn't show direct attribution, it increased their overall efficiency and their numbers are getting better. But they didn't attribute it to that. And if they actually saw the software attribution and that journey, they would be able to see those touches. But it goes missed a lot.
For somebody just starting off with LinkedIn ads, have you tried using the native LinkedIn reporting parts? Because they've introduced so many new ones recently.
They are getting a lot better. And I will say that about LinkedIn. They've really stepped up their game. And so, now they have Company Hub, which is really nice. They have, they can show you the companies that are kind of exposed to your ads. It still is like kind of a manual process to navigate around in there, or to try to piece that back to like your CRM. So now tools are popping up to do that. But I would say, and their channel influence is not bad. Like if they were exposed to an ad, or they engaged with an ad, or even like a thought leader ad was placed on a prospect's feed, and then they take an action on your website, like it will give that channel attribution. It just won't tell you exactly who it was or the company. And that creates a lot of frustration, which again is why, LinkedIn's trying to solve some of those, but software attribution helps with some of those, pairing it back to LinkedIn ad exposure to companies now in your CRM. That would be a big win.
Right. Thank you. And before we jump into more practical examples of what people can do to learn and be like Justin, we have a question from Arish. Just a second. So when you say LinkedIn takes time, how can you predict the timeline to see the results from demos perspective?
So that's a great question that I seem to get a lot. And so instead of just saying it depends, I would say there's 3 primary scenarios. One is you have little to no marketing foundation. You're just getting started. And then you want to jump in with LinkedIn. So you don't have a lot of website traffic that's consistently converting already. You're going to make LinkedIn start from scratch, working in a silo by itself to build awareness with ice cold audiences, look for signs of intent, nurture and convert. That's going to take probably 6 months and $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a month of ad spend in order to build this channel from scratch without anything in place. That's going to take time. Now, second scenario is you have decent website traffic, you have SEO invested, you have, you have $10,000 or $15,000 of paid search spend. You want to get started with LinkedIn ads. You have some traffic already. You could start with retargeting, and even with a couple $1,000s a month, you should be able to get some additional ROI out of your current efforts already. And then you could, put a little money into the cold LinkedIn campaign that will take longer to build that. But you could probably see a decent ROI in 3 to 4 months with, $4,000 or $5,000 with ad spend. And then the best case scenario is you have SEO, you have a healthy paid search budget. You've probably on doing organic and Facebook. You're getting, who knows, 10, 20,000 website visitors a month already, and you're getting consistent conversions on your website. You could honestly just start with LinkedIn retargeting. You could throw even just $3,000 a month into LinkedIn retargeting and get a pretty fast ROI in like less than 60 days, because it's just working from everything else you're doing and qualifying and converting the warm traffic you already have. It should be really easy to show a fast ROI in that equation. But most or when they're coming to LinkedIn, they might be coming a little too early in their journey. They might not have enough foundations, and then they put these high expectations on it that can lead to some of that frustration. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of scenarios where you could see fast ROI by leveraging everything else you already have.
Thank you. And you touched a little bit about budgeting as well, where to put your money into, which channels and so on. So if LinkedIn is a part of your strategy, where and how would you be setting up your budget?
So yeah, the way I like to think about it is I look at the marketing mix and I look at budget by funnel stage. So again, if I have very little top of the funnel traffic already, I don't have that much SEO, I don't have a ton of first click paid search coming in, then if I'm starting with LinkedIn ads, I'm going to allocate maybe 70 or 80% of my budget of LinkedIn ads to cold, because I need to build awareness. I need to get on people's radar. And then as I start getting more website traffic generated from that, then yeah, so I'll go 80% of my LinkedIn budget on cold. I'll have maybe 20% in retargeting. But then as things mature, as maybe I ramp up my paid search or SEO starts to take off, or my organic is building more top of the funnel awareness, I can start shifting more of my LinkedIn budget from cold into retargeting and becoming more efficient. But then, yeah, it also kind of comes down to, yeah, everything else you have going on and how aggressively you want to move. But I typically, for a lot of people, might think 40 or 50% of your budget should be kind of top of funnel, generating those first initial clicks, getting people interested. Might be 30 or 40% that's middle of the funnel, nurturing, qualifying, trying to move, build trust with people that have already taken some initial action. And then you might want, 10 or 15% of your budget at the bottom of the funnel, looking for high intent actions, triggers, stronger calls to action, book a call now, download this, like really trying to nudge them into taking that action. That's kind of how I would think about budget distribution a little bit.
Thank you. Joel asked if there was a recording available. So this is going to be live on LinkedIn if you're watching this on LinkedIn, but at the same time, it's going out as a podcast, attributed on any of your platforms. Plus, it's on YouTube too. So yes, recording is available. We're good. Justin is not leaving any crumbs. So we're going to collect them all. That's great. And if anybody has questions in the audience, feel free to book them right now. We are going to pick them up either as we go or at the end of the questions as well. Let's talk about the tactics that work. So if you were to pick 2-3 optimization tactics that people could learn from, what would that be?
I would say the first one is monitor frequency. And so frequency on LinkedIn is the average number of ads in a campaign that the prospect sees in a given time frame. So the best example would be in your 90-day retargeting campaign. So they visited your website, your company page. You're going to try to build some trust and nurture them over the next 90 days. The 90-day frequency of that campaign is really important. So if my 90-day frequency is 2 or 3, I have almost no chance or very little chance of properly saturating or building enough rapport and trust with that group to move the needle. I might be looking for an average frequency, a 90-day frequency of about 15 or 20, and they're not going to see all of those ads. But if I'm placing 15 or 20 ads on their feed over 90 days, I have a decent chance of building trust, building some brand recognition, and maybe moving more of those prospects down the funnel into being comfortable enough to book a call. So I would say frequency is probably one of the biggest things to monitor. And then I would look at probably click-through rate or engagement rate. And I would look at, I would take my retargeting campaign, and I would also, there's a hidden setting that a lot of people don't know about. You can either optimize for performance, which will make LinkedIn show what they believe your top performing ad is kind of more frequently, or there's rotate evenly. Now, in retargeting, I like to do the rotate evenly because if I have a 90-day retargeting campaign and I have an average frequency of 15, I would rather them see, 15 unique assets over that 90 days versus show them my top 3 ads 5 times each over 90 days. And so just curating that journey and monitoring frequency, I would say those are the 2 biggest hacks I see for improving your efficiency, specifically in retargeting.
And if you're looking into catching the decision makers on LinkedIn, that's what everybody's going after. Like, we want decision makers. They're not on the calls. They have to see our ads. What are the best performing tactics for targeting decision makers on LinkedIn?
So for the targeting, the beautiful thing about LinkedIn is you can target specific job titles. Specific job titles, industries, company sizes. So I think that's one of the reasons people are attracted to it, is because, on Facebook, for example, if you're using their native filters, it's like they follow Gary Vee and they're part of maybe one of these categories. And then you let the algorithm kind of do its thing. But on LinkedIn, I can say, okay, I serve these 5 industries the most. It's these actual position titles that seem to have the most traction, and they're in companies of this size that I know have budget. So I would say use the position titles. You can also, I guess one of the things is LinkedIn categorizes most C-level executives as business development function. So I see this all the time, people wanting to exclude business development because we think SDR, BDR, for whatever reason, LinkedIn categorizes those as business development, your founder, CEO, COO. So don't exclude that. Do maybe focus in on job titles, or if that makes the group too narrow, do seniority plus job function with all the other filters. And then you can build out, one of the things I would say is you can build out a decent exclusion list of companies or job titles or things like that you don't want your ad showing. So as you start seeing people interact with your ads, maybe just look at their profiles and start building out a little exclusion list of categories that help optimize that over time.
And I hear you mentioning interacting with your ads and engagement of the ads. How do you think that game is changing right now, since you can see quite granular details of engagement of ads?
And it definitely changed even more with thought leader ads, which I absolutely love. But yeah, I would say more and more people are using engagement rate and engagement percent as a metric that they're tracking, and they're using thought leader ads, or they're using single image ads or videos that they're more geared towards in-feed consumption, meaning like I don't necessarily care as much if they visit the website from this. The point is I want them to consume this asset or this content that should help move the needle on trust. Like if they actually watch 75% of this, they should theoretically, view us more as experts or have a little more trust. And so gearing, your metrics for that on consumption, video view percentage, and engagement rate, I think are smart. And that is a move from traditionally people are really rigid and say cost per click, click-through rate, cost per lead. That's all they care about. And the biggest thing I would warn about is, and this is just logic, but it took me some time to realize this. Like if you tell any decent marketer that their entire job relies on getting you the most leads for the least amount of money, the only logical conclusion will be that they will find the cheapest, lowest quality leads, because that is the answer to getting the most leads at the lowest price. You have to find the lowest quality leads. So you do have to kind of shake out of that mental whatever in order to say, okay, my goal is not the most leads at the lowest price. My goal is quality pipeline that converts at a higher rate that I feel good about. And that is a big mental shift for some people.
It is, because as a marketer, you are still measured on quantity. What
Yeah.
did you deliver and how much? And
Yeah.
then quality is much less taken up and is more difficult to measure.
It is. But yeah, I mean, you follow that logically and it makes perfect sense. But then, yeah, people have KPIs and people have reporting to do. And so it's so natural to use that as a metric. But then it comes back to the, expensive question, like cost per lead on Facebook versus LinkedIn. Yes, it's going to be higher here. But is that your goal? Is your goal the cheapest clicks or the cheapest leads? No, my goal is quality pipeline that converts. Okay, well then we're gonna have a slightly different conversation. But yeah, it's harder to prove, and it has to be a conversation, I guess.
It is. One of the fun stories just recently, I one of our prospects are running a trial and their CRO jumps into the picture. CRO just only focused on sales. It's like, what is it that you would like to see? Saying, I want to figure out, don't those Facebook ads deliver anything at all? Every single salesperson I speak to said, oh, this is a Facebook ad. This is not going to be good. It's like, please help me understand what brings that in and are those really bad? Because it's
Yeah.
quality and quantity.
Yeah, and it can take a long time to uncover that because while it's raining down in Facebook leads, it might take you 3, 4, 6 months for the sales team to finally be like, no, this is garbage. Like, stop sending me these. But it looks good on paper. You're like, I got X amount of leads and we got X amount of cost per lead. You can report on that, 6, 7 months in a row until finally someone's like, well, we're missing all of our quotas and pipeline's really dry. Like, none, like, so yeah, you're out of here. But that's
Exactly.
tough.
Tell me some stories from your clients. I want you to brag a bit. What are the coolest stories that you've seen recently that your clients have achieved together with you?
One of the things that I was pretty proud of is we were working with a company called Lacework. They're in the data security side of things, software, and we actually partnered with them. Simon, great guy there. He's moved on to another company, but they had kind of innovative strategies. We worked together. They were doing like conversation ads, which not many people do on LinkedIn. They're sending DMs that look like they're coming from your profile. They paired that. They did that top of the funnel, but they also did bottom of the funnel trigger. So if someone took high intent action or engaged with middle of the funnel, they would then trigger a conversation ad at the bottom of the funnel. They also paired it with like an offer, like a paid offer to get on a paid demo. And you can say what you want about that, but it worked amazing for them. They actually did so well that LinkedIn itself did a case study on Laceworks efforts. They were nice enough to shout out Impactable as their agency, publish that, and then I think it was not too much longer. Lacework actually got acquired by a publicly traded company, and so then they changed over things. But I would say that was one of our prouder moments, and also success there.
Nice. And even LinkedIn has shouted you out on top of that. That is
Yeah, they seem to like us these days. They invited us to their LinkedIn Independent Agency Summit. We just got another invite back this year, and 2 speaking spots on their panel. So they actually do like us, which is a far cry from my original business, where they sent me a cease and desist letter. They actually took over our company. Our company account. They seized it, never got it back. And yeah, we were kind of at war. But we were also doing a lot of LinkedIn automation and stuff, so it was a little more less on the up and up.
That's good. That's good to see that. And thank you for sharing this story. One thing that we missed a bit out on, and there was a comment about hiring a good copywriter.
Hmm.
How does content marketing play into a successful multi-channel approach with LinkedIn?
It is a balance because when I see I've seen the most beautiful copy and designs in the world get wasted through poor targeting and settings, but then all else being in place, decent copy and design really can move the needle and elevate. And the biggest thing is, trying to LinkedIn's a platform where people want to move their business forward, but they also want to consume content that's written and feels human and not just, corporate sales. So writing copy that speaks to the actual human, that delivers value, that shows, subject matter expertise, that can be tough. And so, yeah, decent copy that, especially, I guess, speaks to either their pain or the results or hits on one of those emotional heartstrings really can move the needle more than a lot of other things.
Nice. If there are any more questions in the audience, feel free to ping them over here. And let's go to the final question of today's as well. So Dream Data is a LinkedIn marketing partner, and one of the tools where you can see your LinkedIn ads performing or seeing how you can enhance your targeting, use it for audiences or offline conversions as well. Tell me more about tools and technologies that you recommend for clients to use when they're trying to set up a multi-channel approach with LinkedIn.
So I would say we have been referring a decent amount of people to Dream Data when it comes to software attribution, especially when we have those HubSpot CRM users who are adamant about, if it's not in HubSpot or if HubSpot didn't say that it was, attributed to this channel, then it doesn't exist. And the first thing I say is that, HubSpot is not an attribution platform. You actually need, and I'll go to like Dream Data's page and I'll say, if you actually need a solution for this, it's not HubSpot. It would be something like this. Here's the cost of that. It's a whole field of marketing separate, from CRM. We do have Demand Sense for ad scheduling and some audience tuning. I definitely recommend that for people getting started that don't want to waste their budget, and also think really look at investing in audiences because yes, LinkedIn native targeting is pretty great, but we've seen the most advertisers get the most success when they're taking time outside of LinkedIn to kind of curate audiences that they best serve. For example, like layering on Technographic. If you're serving startups that use WordPress as a website, instead of just trying to target SaaS companies in a certain company size, you could actually go out and you could get the Technographic data of SaaS companies from 50 to 200 in size that have WordPress installed on their website. You can load that onto LinkedIn, layer on demographic filters on top of that to find the decision makers. That leads to some of the best results versus just LinkedIn native targeting alone.
Nice. And where do you build audiences for LinkedIn that touches both like website visits or any other touches across, and then push that back?
So in the past, we've used a lot of different sites, like BuiltWith is a good one for Technographic. But now, after much work on our own, we actually have the ability, a data engineering team, an audience team inside Impactable, where we actually can do that for ourselves and for clients and have some healthy contracts. But a lot of people would go to Apollo, ZoomInfo, BuiltWith, a lot of those other ones. And if you have the time and energy and patience to piece together those, layer those on, that could be a solution. Otherwise, yeah, I would say the Impactable team might be able to help you out with that as well.
Final question on that, very tactical. How often would you sync an audience back to LinkedIn?
It depends. So I would say for some of the things, obviously website visitors, company page visitors, you can set up dynamic audiences that are constantly updating those. For other things, as far as if you want to take current clients or current pipeline and expand those, it could be every couple of weeks, or it could be monthly. And part of it is either you have an automated tool that's doing that dynamically that makes it easier to do it on a faster cadence, or if you're doing it manually, pick something that you can do consistently. Every 2 weeks or every month seems to be a decent cadence, and you don't lose a ton of time on that. It's not realistic for most people to be able to set up a daily or weekly flow. They'll usually just fall behind and kind of have that slip.
Cool. Thank you. We've covered a lot today. It was like a rapid session. That's great. And before we go, if we were to summarize our conversation today, what are the couple of things that people have to remember after the call today?
If you remember nothing else, got the nice zoom.
I have no idea.
If you remember nothing else, remember that LinkedIn works best in combination with other channels. So paid search and then LinkedIn qualifying and retargeting, that works beautifully. Take your time to get the settings right, focus on frequency and building trust for your content on LinkedIn. And then, yeah, I would definitely say that LinkedIn can be expensive if you do it wrong, but in most scenarios where you already have decent ROI from other marketing efforts, LinkedIn could be a very easy value add and ROI booster to what you're already doing. It's usually most expensive when you don't have those foundations and you're trying to get LinkedIn to work by itself in a silo, starving from those other multi-channel integrations.
Awesome. Thank you. Justin, where can people find you, contact you, and learn more from
So you
you?
can find me on LinkedIn if you look for Justin Rowe, RWE. I should be one of the more visible ones. You can go to impactable.com if you have any LinkedIn ads needs. And I'm also pretty proud of our YouTube channel. If you look at Impactable on YouTube, I think we have like 300 plus videos. And there's one that's just like a beginner's play guide that kind of looks like or feels like a $397 course. It walks you through everything, like setting up your first campaign, creating ads, the settings, an audit checklist. So that would be the best places to find me.
I highly recommend. LinkedIn does too. Thank you so much for today, Justin. It was